Hello and welcome to the EPP Group's report on this week's plenary activities from Strasbourg. It got off to a contentious start ahead of the 27th anniversary of the Schengen Treaty, where EPP Group members fought hard to defend the original agreement that was signed on the 14th of June 1985. It comes as the Council of Ministers took the controversial decision to change the legal basis of the Schengen evaluation mechanism, effectively reintroducing internal border checks and making them a national competence. And it did so without even consulting its co-legislator, the European Parliament. This has caused outrage and indignation amongst members who say the citizens' fundamental right to free movement is at stake. EPP Group Chairman Joseph Daul and Rapporteur Carlos Coelho confronted the Danish presidency.
The Danish presidency has broken a bond of trust with this parliament because it has recklessly departed from the fundamental principle of the community method. I accuse the Council of not wanting to strengthen the freedom of movement. I accuse the Council of being obsessed with multiplying, enlarging and increasing the reintroduction of internal border checks.
The members called on the Council to revert its decision, to sit down and discuss the issue with them. Otherwise, it would be forced to take the matter to the European Court of Justice. A response from the Council is expected imminently. EU budgets are based on the multi-annual financial framework agreed by Parliament, the Council and the Commission. This rigidly outlines the EU's expenditure for a 6-year period. In plenary, members push for more flexibility before the next budget is set in 2014, allowing the EU to shift resources easily and to channel the funds where it deems appropriate at the time. The EPP Group also wants to reduce the burden on national finances. Currently, member states contribute to nearly 80% of the EU's budget. Members Jean-Luc Dehaene and Reimer Bürger have suggested that the EU be partly funded by its own sources of income, which would come from the financial transaction tax and new EU VAT system.
I would like to say as well, we should not only talk about better spending in the budget. Talking about budget consolidation, it's also important that the Commission stops any proposal on EU legislation which means additional bureaucratic burden and costs for member states, for regions and local communities.
During the debate, the role of Europe was called into question. EPP Group Chairman Joseph Daul defended the Union, saying Europe was part of the solution, not the problem.
The reality is that no European country can cope on its own with global challenges. If over the last 60 years we have achieved peace and prosperity, it was thanks to one method, the community method. I believe profoundly in this method. He
urged heads of state and government to move from bold decisions to strong actions at the European Council on the 28th and 29th of June. On Wednesday, we came 2 steps closer to tighter economic governance and preventing a repeat financial crisis as 2 new pieces of legislation, known as the Two-Pack, were passed in a vote. Jean-Paul Gauzès, EPP Group member and rapporteur, was responsible for the regulation on improving budgetary surveillance of member states. If a country is in danger, the Commission will be able to step in early on and impose a deadline for measures to be implemented.
It's really about restoring normality and protecting other member states in the Eurozone from possible negative fallouts. In order to be able to do this, the regulation defines clear procedures for those countries in difficulty.
Now, with a plenary mandate, Parliament's negotiators will enter into 3-way talks with the Council and the Commission in order to reach a deal on the implementation of the new legislation. In the wake of the economic crisis, the EPP has been consistently looking at ways to reintegrate people back into the labour market and to stimulate growth. Italian member Marco Scurria has been promoting cross-border volunteering activities as a viable means. In his report, he points out the benefits to the economy and says it gives citizens the opportunity to build on the skills they need to gain future employment.
The approval of this report is very important because, until a few months ago, volunteering was a kind of mysterious subject for the European Union. Despite the 100 million volunteers and the 5% of GDP produced in the world as a result, it seemed that this area did not exist.
He calls for the creation of a European voluntary humanitarian aid corps which would train and send volunteers to support local organisations in the event of natural disasters.
We also support the Commission's proposal to establish a European passport of competencies so that professional and educational skills acquired through volunteering are officially recognized.
Parliament unanimously adopted the report, which is an important step forward for the EPP Group in improving social cohesion, capital and employment. Marco Scurria's objective now is to continue to promote cross-border volunteering in cooperation with the Member States and through EU funding programmes. And that's all for this week's highlights, but please join us in Brussels, where we will be bringing you more information about the activities of the largest group in the European Parliament. In the meantime, you can keep up to date on our website at eppgroup.eu. See you soon.